Hi, I'm Christina Lowry, and I have the great honor of leading Girl Rising. At Girl Rising, we envision a world in which girls thrive with dignity and vast possibilities. Like everyone else, we're stuck in our homes right now. In this series of conversations, we're hoping to bring you an unfiltered view into the reality for girls around the world, of our work, and of the people behind it. Today, Girl Rising's Vice President of Programs, Judithe Registre, is speaking with Carol Ochieng, founder of Big Picture Learning, one of Girl Rising's program partners in Kenya. Before we begin, we just want to ground us all in the reality for girls in Kenya. Approximately 1.3 million primary school-age children in Kenya do not attend school. 55% of them are girls. Only 38% of adolescent girls complete secondary school. 23% of young women in Kenya give birth before the age of 18. But Kenya, like every country, has much to gain from investing in girls' education. Each extra year of secondary school can help a young woman increase her future earnings by 10 to 20%. Girls' education is one of the best investments we can make.
We are all very excited not only to get to know you and your background, but what motivates you, inspire you based on what you do.
So my name is Caroline, and I'm an educator by profession. Before getting into education, so a bit about my background, I was born and brought up in Kibera, which is one of the second largest informal settlement in Africa. So when I was growing up in Kibera, I experienced a lot of, injustices as a child and as a girl growing up in that community. We didn't have, I didn't have what I needed as a child. I didn't have opportunities to attend better schools. Food was a problem. One of the things that motivated us to even go to school sometimes was the 1 meal in a day that you get. Mm-hmm. So I was brought up by a very strong mother. I was lucky that, even though we were going through challenges, my mom had gone to high school and college. And so when we didn't have, I didn't have a lot of women in my community to look up to. I looked up to my mother because I was like, if my mother went to high school and college, then I need to also, do the same. So that's kind of the why of my work. So when I went into education, after many years of dropping out of school, because, my family really struggled to keep me in school, even though I was the only child, I went to teach at a very prestigious school. And I was like, the difference in opportunities and the education that the kids or, my students were getting and what I got, as a child growing up in Kibera, it was just 2 worlds apart, even though it's Kenya, it was just so different. And then I think that is where I began to question a lot of things. I was like, I even started questioning my purpose. Is this where I'm supposed to work? So that's kind of the why of, the why of what I'm doing right now. So yeah.
So what has it been like? Yeah, what has it been like for the work that you've been doing, given the pandemic in Kenya? What is the environment like? A lot of places have been in lockdown. So in particular, what is it like for you? Because right now you said you're in the village and you've been very busy. What is it like during this health crisis? Tell us a little about how things are going for you.
So when this is, I think this is our 9th week since the first case of coronavirus was reported in Nairobi, Kenya. Nairobi is like the capital of Kenya, and that's where our work is. That is where Kenya Big Picture Learning work is. So when the first case was reported, things just skyrocketed. We had the first case, the next day we had 3 people, and then we had 100 people. And then the lockdown was introduced. After we started by having the lockdown, so people were not allowed to move from one place to another. And then the government introduced the travel restrictions. Schools were closed even before the travel restrictions. All the schools in Kenya were closed, including colleges. And I think when that happened, a lot of schools and school leaders were caught unawares. I don't think there was the preparation that went into place to prepare both the teachers and the students for that. It was like an emergency. So what happened was, so I work in marginalized communities. Students from marginalized communities stopped going to school. And teachers, a lot of these marginalized communities, access to internet is still not there,
Yeah.
60% of the teachers that I support do not have access to internet. So, even the students that that we work with, had no way of reaching the teachers, had no way of learning. And that's kind of what is still happening right now. That, even though, some schools, I know public schools, private schools are, reaching their students through, online learning. Online learning is not happening for students from marginalized communities. I'm someone who is like hands-on. I want to be there. I want to do something. Well, like, what do I do? What can we do? How can we continue, supporting, the students and the school leaders, in our communities? Because they are right now with this pandemic, they are double marginalized. They're already marginalized, but the fact that they cannot, access education. Kids who come from marginalized communities, apart from the fact that, they cannot afford the basic things that they need to do in school. School is a safe haven for them.
Yeah.
And this is in many cases for girls. So when I was growing up, so much was happening in Kibera. Abuses, rape was happening for girls. There are people who, were just, not trained to respect women and girls. And so for me, school was a safe haven for me, because when I went to school, I could be a kid, I could play with my peers, I could learn very well. So, that scares me right now, because we have girls in the communities, they are not going to school, they are not engaged. So just like, we need to do something. And so we figured out a way of ensuring that some of our students, we've not been able to get all of them, have bundles. So we send bundles every day, and we do skill-based training for them. For me, it's, other than the skills, I'm not even concerned about the skills that they are learning. I'm concerned about the messaging that we keep on repeating to them, that, school is coming. Because it's very easy for these kids to just sleep and get married, for girls.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Still a student,
Yeah.
school will be open. What are you struggling with today? Do you have sanitary pads? Do you have, a friend to talk to when you're stressed? Are you safe? What is happening in your community? And so that's how we've been able to, connect with our students. I've been working with women as well. So other than the work that I do with the big picture learning, I also have, so I started an income generating project for women in Kibera. So it's called Cheka Mamas, Laughing Mamas, where they make, stuff as a way to generate income for them and their children. So I know that, the issues that women are facing, whether it's gender-based violence, it's, the lack of opportunities, it's, the many things that, are stopping women from accessing education and opportunities that they should access. We cannot solve them by just looking at women alone.
Yeah.
We cannot solve it by looking at women alone. I'll give you an example. When I was a girl growing up, my dad, was abusing my mom. And so as a girl growing up, I thought that was okay because it was dad, and the way girls look at their dads, if an adult is doing it, then probably, women are supposed to be punished, So for me to get out of that mindset, it took a lot of time and unlearning, When I think about the girls in the communities that we serve, this is what they're seeing every single day. And then the messages that come out of that is sometimes women are stupid, they have to be disciplined, women are this and this, they have to, and that's how they grow up, So I'm for girl empowerment and women empowerment, but over the years I've learned that, you cannot do it in isolation. You have to look at the boys and the men in this community. When we started the Cheka Mamas, for example, the husbands of the women that were coming to this project, they came to me and they were like, why are you empowering our women? We are okay with them being housewives. So if I had, if I couldn't convince the men, and many opportunities, including, childbirth, family planning, the men make decisions. They, we like it or not. So we cannot just look at, let's empower girls and women. It's a good thing to do. But I think if you just, focus on that and leave the men, then that's for me is a recipe for chaos.
No, I'm complete agreement with you, which brings me to sort of my next question for you. You're raising 3 boys, you mentioned, right? And one of the importance, I think, in understanding kind of like what the opportunities are is the fact that we need to empower boys so they can be sort of like humans that can show up in the world with respect for themselves, with respect for each other. Raising 3 boys.
Yes.
How do you approach this, in a world, in an environment that expect boys to behave in one certain ways? And for a lot of parents, I can imagine this tension of what it means to actually be this certain type of men and raising your boys to be this certain type of men with a value that you seem to be very set on actually building a world where boys and girls can live without having to sacrifice their humanity in this world. So what does that mean for you raising 3 boys?
We want to raise kids that have values. We also have to look at the realities of what is happening. So what I've seen happening over the years is girls now have more opportunities than they did when I was growing up as a child. So I remember, before I started Big Picture Learning, I was working for a non-profit organization, an education organization, and we had more women. My boss preferred more girls because she was like, women are more sensitive, women are more, this and this, they give their all, they break their back, And so for me, as a mother of boys, I've been thinking a lot about that. And I'm like, in some years to come, if we do not prepare our boys for the world that is fast, that is this world that is changing fast, then they are going to be marginalized. So you can imagine my son, my firstborn son, Jeff, in 10 years, he's going to want to get married. If I train my boy or Jeff to expect women to serve him, the traditional African husband where you come home, you sit and you take your newspaper and wait for that woman to serve you, then Jeff is not going to be successful. Because right now, women are, going after careers. They are achieving as well as men, even more, So, a typical Kenyan girl wakes up at 5. When boys are studying, they are preparing to go to school. They are preparing tea. The girls are preparing tea. They are making sure that, the house is clean. They are making sure that all these things are happening before they go to school. So if that is the expectation that Christine, my sister, has, we have to flip that.
it brings me to another set of questions with you in terms of what do you see around both the issue you've just raised around how we're raising our boys and girls to actually respect and share in the values and the reality of our world. What are you seeing? In addition, you've described like what's happening at your own household. What do you see across the community that's shaping the ways that boys and the way girls are supported, both to learn how to cook and support at the household level, but also to actually go to school and learn to be leaders in their communities? What are the things that you are seeing that's keeping you hopeful about this forward planning for the future for our kids?
Yes. What I've seen that I'm really excited about is the many organizations that, have come to support, issues around girl education and girl accessing opportunities. One that I'm going to mention is actually, I think, was it 3 years ago, the Kenyan government finally passed a law that women could inherit, their, properties. That has been ages, Yeah, my own mom was, sent out of her land because she cannot own, women do not have the rights to own. So that's a big step. I think there's so much that needs to be done to ensure that women are fully accessing, opportunities, and, women can, own, things. But I think that was the first step towards the right direction that I'm excited about. And then, like I said, right now in Kenya, there's a lot of talk about, boys. How come, people are forgetting about boys? How about the boy child? So for me, what that speaks is there are so many people and so many organizations, educators included. I have, school leaders who are, old men that are advocating for the rights of girls, so people are just really advocating for the rights of girls. And then girls are rising more, when I was growing up in the village, I was, the first girl in my clan to ever go to high school and go to college and now get a job. Behind me now, I have, girls are now going to school, things are happening. They might look small, but, I'm hopeful, because things are changing and they're changing very fast. Another thing that I've seen is, so when I was a child growing up and going to school, child labor, for girls. I remember, women taking girls from the village to come and work as house helps in their houses. Right now, that has really reduced. I remember there's a time my cousin was looking for a house help, and it was really hard for her to get. Like you'll get old women or girls who are have either completed their high school, but it's very hard to see a child working as a house help in someone's household. So I think those are exciting things that we should celebrate. I think Kenya still has a long way to go, but I think we are making, we are making progress.
In too many places, education is one obstacle, but all the challenges around education, like the fact that a mother can't give her child, citizenship, you can't inherit, all of those things maintain and restructure, maintain the hold on progress. But I think what's exciting that I'm hearing you say is the ongoing work alongside boys and girls, both in the way of household support, boys recognizing, I love the way you talk about raising your son for the future of the girls that you are working with, right? Like, how do we do that? Because we can't raise boys to engage with women that no longer exist, right? And so how do we balance that, equality in the way we're raising our children and preparing them for the world? Kara, I think there's so much at stake for this world with COVID-19. What are some last thoughts that, both by way of what's concerning for you that you are building for within the context of the hope? What other challenges that there are examples of, things we are navigating through right now, that we need to do more of that, while at the same time considering that the challenges are many, but we also need to actually acknowledge the small incremental steps that are being taken.
My thoughts around that is I've been thinking a lot about COVID-19 and what is happening. And, people are talking about the new normal, which I'm struggling to, to embrace. I don't think this is the new normal. I think for me, COVID-19 has opened our eyes to see the injustices that are happening for both boys and girls. Especially I'm an advocate of, kids that, come from marginalized communities. So sometimes I ask myself, the lack of opportunities for boys and girls to access education, is that the new normal? I don't want to be in this new normal, I think about the girls that are now, there's a recent article that came up, and there's a rising, number of girls who are pregnant right now. And it's because, it shouldn't be, we shouldn't take so many time to guess why this is happening, because, girls are not in school, people are taking advantage of them. Most of them are family members and people that are very close to them. So I don't want to see this as the new normal. So I think for me as an educator, and this is also something that, my team and I speak a lot about, is how can we, look at COVID-19 and challenge the injustices that are happening right now, as opposed to let's embrace this is the new normal. How can we create opportunities and use COVID-19 as a lesson to create opportunities for every child? So for me, it's a challenge. I think my eyes have been opened even more to the needs of every child, especially the needs of children that come from marginalized communities. And I want to use that to, to envision or reimagine education so that this doesn't become the new normal.
I am with you on that. This whole idea of the new normal, giving the exposure of this weak system, is hard to actually accept as a new normal. And so time for us to reimagine. And I want to reimagine with you. I think this is the time for us to reimagine, recreate, and build. It was such a great opportunity to connect with you. And there's so much more we're going to be doing together. And I look forward to being on this journey with you. And thank you so much for taking the time today.
I really appreciate, the support of Girl Rising. It's a partnership that, my organization really appreciates. So, anytime, let's continue talking.